think that some of the best advice I've ever heard for young people is from India. When my teacher, who was the same age as me, but in India they study college in high school age. So I'm from the USA. So when you study in the USA, you go to high school and then you go to college. But there, you start to focus on your chosen career when you're in high school age. So you're actually graduated and ready to practice your degree by the time you're about 18. So she had been practicing for like a decade and was one of the teachers that I studied Ayurveda under. And she told me that that's normal, that you focus on your school, you focus on your hobbies, and you don't really focus on dating at all because you're getting your degree in that time. So it's not until your 20s that you start to date. And if I had gone there when I was a teenager or even in my early 20s, I might not have understood it the same way that I did as going after I took years of a break from dating. So it didn't happen on purpose that I went years without dating. That means no intimacy, no touch, no kissing, no dating, no dates, no messaging, nothing. It was like just me, myself, my dog, my focusing. And initially, it was just that I had a relationship. The man was really nice, but he had an addiction problem, and I just didn't want to be around anything like that anymore. And he had a child, and he had a lot of drama with his ex. And I I had been married. That was a bad relationship. And then I had tried to take a break from dating after marriage. And, where I'm from, the way that you like meet someone new when you're ready and you've been single for a while is like you go to a bar and you have a beer at like a normal hour and maybe you meet someone and that's like, oh, maybe it's your future spouse because it's a small area. It's not really like, and today this swipe dating stuff, I don't know about it. I've never tried it. I probably won't. Yeah, I'm almost 38. I don't think I will. I don't think I'm ever going to. I probably won't. So, back in like 2009 when I was 23, I don't think swipe dating was a thing yet, especially not where I lived. So yeah, you would like go to a bar and have a beer and like maybe meet someone. And if it's a full moon, you can pretend that it was like fate and magic. But it never really was fate or magic, and I never did meet anyone that I ended up having a lasting relationship with. So it's not really amazing advice for today's youth. If you've met someone that way and you're still with them, congratulations. You're very lucky and probably rare. I don't know how you're supposed to meet people. I'm actually not good at that. I don't like to date. I think dates are awkward. And I always like to pay because I don't want to feel like I owe anybody anything. So, whenever I went out, I liked to be the one to pay. When I'm in a relationship, I'm the same way. I like being able to provide. It like makes me feel good. So, it basically was like I ended that relationship with my ex-husband. So I was married young. And if I had married the right man, I would still be married now. And that would be ideal for me. Like, I would much prefer that as to what I just experienced. But I'm glad that I divorced him because he was not a good partner, not a good spouse, and not a good person to me. And actually caused a lot of chaos in my life, even long after we were divorced somehow. We were divorced in 2008. So I tried to date after that and find the right person. I didn't date because I wanted to just hang out with somebody for a few months and then not. I wanted to date somebody to find my person who I wanted to be with for forever. So, it's kind of complicated the way that society has everybody do that in the USA. It's like a fast forward society. And I guess it works, but for me looking back upon it, I don't really think it's the advice that I would give to young people, which is why I started to share my life and my story so much, because a lot of the people that I was around when I was growing up that didn't know everything that happened to me or that sat by and watched it happen to me have kids that are my age that I was when that stuff started happening. And I wanted them to be able to talk to their kids from a different perspective, maybe from what they experienced, because my life was really awful for a good amount of time because of situations that I was either put in or that I was in because I didn't recognize that they could be bad or dangerous because no one told me about them. Things like GHB and day rape wasn't really discussed, and it wasn't discussed how quickly it can happen either. I shared a video that shows that a woman turns away and a man can put something in her drink. That's how quickly it can happen. So this is why it's really important for youth all over the world to be educated so they have awareness to what's going on and to understand different cultures too, you know. Not everywhere is like the USA with how they date or how they do relationships. And when I got older, I started to see the benefit in that. And I started to understand because I decided to take this break from dating. And I initially thought maybe it would be 6 months or like a year that I would not date. But then it turned into years. It was 2 years. And then I met someone on vacation, and we tried to keep in touch and things like that. And it just kind of didn't end up going anywhere. I didn't know how to use technology. And then I went another 2 years and I met someone and we had 6 weeks of a relationship. So I actually thought that was going to go somewhere, or I would not have risked having that relationship because I wanted to meet like my future spouse after that long of a break. I didn't want to just date someone for 6 weeks and then end a relationship. I would have stayed single if I had known that that's what he was doing. But he misled me and led me to believe that he had deeper feelings for me than he did. So I regret that a lot. I don't know how to tell people how to better gauge what someone's intentions are. I want to be able to tell people like how to tell if someone's lying, how to tell if someone's genuine, how to tell if someone's got good intentions for you. But to be honest, I don't have a clue. I don't know how to tell if someone's lying. I don't know how to tell if somebody has good intentions. And I'm always surprised in a bad way when people do horrible things to me because I would never do a lot of the things that have been done to me to another human being. And I've gone through life with genuine intention or good intention or no intention. So I don't really understand why people with cruel intentions or bad intentions do things the way that they do. And that makes it hard for me to understand or know. So one of the reasons that I spoke up so much is because I went through a lot of sexual trauma and rape when I was a young person, and then I dealt with it in unhealthy ways because I didn't have anyone to talk to and I couldn't talk about some of it, which is why I am now as an almost 38-year-old woman, because I don't want another person to ever go through what I did. But when I became older and I had my life and I went that long without a relationship, it became easier and easier to be alone. I know that I don't want to be alone, or I didn't. I wanted to have a family and a partner and my house and, you know, an earthship, a self-sustainable home, because I can't afford a normal house. I wanted like my own thing and a garden and my land. That was my goal. That's what I wanted in life. And the years that I spent focusing on that were really beneficial for me because I had so many things I loved to do with my time. I painted, I did my dance, I sang, I hiked every day, I took care of my dog, I budgeted my money, I made food when I wasn't working and I didn't have leftovers from work because I was always in the food industry. And I loved to bake and I loved to cook, and sometimes I'd bring like leftovers into the places that I worked if I like over-baked muffins or bread or something like that. I always kind of had my own routine and I was happy in that. And I didn't crave random attention, affection, or anything like that from a strange person or someone I didn't know. Like I wanted a relationship. So I think that's what made it so easy for me, because I didn't have that desire to like just have someone random around me. Because so many times when I was young, I assumed that a relationship would go somewhere. Otherwise, I never would have wasted my time. So I think getting older, it gives you that ability to like view things like that and realize that we waste so much time on people that don't have good intentions. But the problem is that those people don't even know themselves or don't care enough to tell you, because if everybody knew who they were and what they wanted, they would be honest. So people would say like, oh yeah, I'm just looking for a fling. And then you could be like, well, I'm not the one for you, but, you know, good luck. And there's plenty of people that want that. So it's kind of like, it's really complicated to do in a world where people are not very genuine as a whole. And people don't know themselves because oftentimes everybody's been in a relationship or is constantly seeking one, or seeking attention, or seeking the need for it, or seeking sex, or seeking whatever it is. They don't have a chance to get to know who they are. So they don't usually like their own company or know how to be alone. Then they don't know themselves. And then when they enter into a relationship, a lot of people will bring issues from their previous relationship into one with someone who, yes, you have your own issues. You're going to have complications. You're going to have hard conversations and arguments and all kinds of things. But you should never be bringing them in from a past relationship and like picking up where you left off with your previous partner. So it's different from having trauma that in a healthy relationship, you should be able to communicate and work through. Like, this person put me through hell and now I'm fucked up because I have these issues from it. And how can we communicate and work it out so that we can actually have a better relationship? That's healthy. But having someone that is bringing the issues that they had and then bringing them into your relationship like they're yours is really just overly complicated and a mess for your mind, and it's just too much. I had to deal with that, and that was awful. But I think that now that I'm learning more about personality types, and I finally figured out that I have autism, but of course I was very good at masking because I had to. I didn't have an option. When I was growing up, they weren't going to give me space to figure out what I needed. And people weren't going to cater to my needs or my desires in the way that they are today. And it wasn't common to have a spectrum of autism. Any person when I was really young would have known. They would have known that I oftentimes would look at people's hands or their mouths when they spoke, not at their eyes. And I often am distracted by things, birds and butterflies and the trees, and I'm naturally kind of happy. Autistic people don't usually have bad intentions. That's another thing that I'm noticing, is that I'm part of a group, and like a lot of us are like naturally who we are. And we're not pretending to be nice for a reason. We're not pretending to be happy. And similarly, we're not pretending to be sad or upset when we are, or who we are. And we don't have a choice in how to be any other way. We're genuine people. And it throws off people who are not genuine and makes them mad oftentimes at us. But realizing that I'm autistic has been helpful too. So there's all of these conversations about being demisexual and how maybe with autism you're demisexual, or being an INFJ that you're demisexual, which means you have to have an emotional connection in order to want to be intimate with someone. So that's the other thing though, is that an emotional connection, how can that be defined? If you're a spiritual person, how do you understand an emotional connection, and how is one made? Can they be made astrally? I thought that they could up until recently, and now I know, no, they cannot be made astrally. That's just like another version of fantasy. You can communicate telepathically with people, and you can communicate and see great change in the world when you're communicating telepathically with people. But when it comes to relationships and intimacy, I think that it's just a little bit too complicated. I think that it's better to develop that kind of relationship with your spouse or with your partner, because if you think that it's happening and it's not, it can be damaging to your heart or to your center or to your spirit, because it is a bonding in a way. It's an intimacy bonding in a way, whether or not it's grounded on this earth or in another plane of existence, another remembrance, another time, another timeline. So it's better to let those kind of things go and to not let them be present in your energy field unless you have a connection with someone that's founded in the real world plane of existence, or what I call hell planet, Earth. And then when you have those connections, you can communicate about them in the future so that they're confirmed, which will bring you closer together with your spouse. That has a lot to do with like meditation together, spirituality together, growth together. It's when you find your heavenly ordained spouse, then you are allowed or allowing yourself to have a full conscious relationship that is founded in mind, body, and spirit, not just mind and body, not just this world that prevents us from actually fully experiencing what it means to have a whole relationship and connection to someone, which would be like your heavenly ordained spouse. You would have that with them naturally. You have a telepathic connection, you have a soul connection, spirit connection, and you can telepathically communicate, but also you can reach a level of intimacy with them that will be beneficial to your earthly relationship because that's your heavenly ordained spouse. So I think that learning more about being an INFJ, learning more about autism, it's been helpful for me to understand because people don't understand how I can go so long without being touched by another, or without being loved by another, or hugged, or kissed, or made love to, or dating, you know, like I don't even go on dates. I don't. And it's not like it's something that you want. You're not like saying that's what you want for forever, but it's like what happens, you know, there's no time frame. And for me, I always just wished that the right person, even when I was like 26, I was like, man, I wish the right person would just appear at my door so that so that I could be like, and it would like light would shine down upon them. Ah, there's your heavenly ordained spouse. And then you could just be married and have a relationship and go on dates with your partner. That's more comfortable, you know? You can have like all of that great stuff and build a relationship. Because the idea of just getting to know someone and to have these conversations that most of the time are not very deep, you know, like so many times I have tried to connect spiritually to people and it's just not there. And I can't make excuses for it anymore like I could when I was young. One of the ways that I decided somebody could make a good partner is we liked the same music. But I like pretty much every genre of music, like every single one. When I listen to my top playlist, it's like every genre music from every part of the world. So if I had based my dating off of that, I could date anyone from anywhere and say, well, we like the same music. Not a very good way to like gauge a partner. Of course, somebody making you laugh and you like the same kind of music, that was kind of like a done deal for me when I was young. Like, well, they make me laugh and we like the same music. So that's it. And I just wanted to settle down and like have a good life and be like a power couple, build each other up and build a life together. But being single taught me so much about myself. It taught me about who I was, what my triggers were, what I liked, what I disliked. But I knew that the real work was going to be in a partnership. Unfortunately, I didn't end up in healthy ones. So, you know, I wish that I had stayed single in that time period. I wish especially I did not have that 6-week fling because it made me think that I couldn't trust my instincts. I took a chance and I took a big risk too with my belly dance career as well, because being with him potentially completely ruined it. And I was just beginning to put myself out there publicly. So I took a huge chance with that relationship, a risk at my goals, my happiness, and my future. And he just treated it like it was nothing. So I regret that very much. And if I had stayed single, I would like to imagine that the person I let in after that would have actually been genuine. But because I let somebody in that didn't have genuine intentions, it made me question my instincts, because I was like, how could I go so long being alone and feel like this was right to do or like it was worth the risk? and then have it go so wrong. So it made me kind of question my own intuition and instincts. And then it sent me into the whole like Western minded dating thing, which was like, okay, well, I knew I was ready. I was like, that made me realize I am ready for a relationship. I wanted to buy my land first, have my earthship, and have my business worked out. So like have a routine in a life that was solid before I allowed anyone into my life. But that actually taught me, that experience taught me that actually that would have been a good time for me to have a relationship, because I was a little bit more bendable, so I could have lived anywhere. I was going to move to another country to be with him because I had a visa that was like a decade, and we could have lived where we were for a decade, and from there we could have figured anything out. But that was only if he wanted it to, and he didn't. So I went back home and I tried to date, and then I ended up with my abusive ex, who broke my spine and gave me the spinal cord injury. So this time, being single for 3 years and 3 months is a little bit different. You can imagine that it's pretty traumatic, what I went through with him for 4 years. And it wasn't just what he did to me, it was his whole life that he brought into mine. There was so much drama all the time, so much chaos all the time, and it was never consistent. And I would have been better off to not have allowed him in my life at all. He came into the restaurant I worked at every single week, and then he brought himself into my life, and he presented himself as different than he was, and he ended up crippling me, and he was psychologically torturing me at the end, not a joke. It was pretty horrible. So even if he hadn't crippled my body, I would have needed quite a long time to work through that, unless I met someone who was like 100% genuine. And I guess I've always been a giver in relationships. If I had met somebody who was a giver, then I could have probably had a relationship without taking such a long break in between. But the fact that, most of the time I've attracted people that are the opposite, and they take and they don't build up and they don't encourage, and they're not kind to me. They tear me apart, break me down, belittle me, and in this case, cripple me too, which has done so many bad things to my life and my confidence, because my confidence came from not my outer appearance, but how agile I was. Running mountains made me feel so beautiful. It didn't matter if I was like fat because I ate too many noodles from work, or was hormonal because I was in my 20s. It didn't matter. Any of that didn't matter. It was how I felt. And now, being crippled, I don't feel beautiful, because I can't do what made me feel beautiful. It's not that I don't think people with disabilities are beautiful. It's that I got so much happiness from putting on music and just walking, from running a mountain, from dancing as much as I wanted, from working and making my own money. So this has affected my life in so many different ways, because I tried to go back to work and I couldn't. What I have is life-threatening because of what he did to me. And I tried so many different ways to keep moving forward, to be positive, and to try to make my life better. But unfortunately, a lot of things got sabotaged. Funding for school getting taken away right before Christmas of 2022 was pretty hard for me, because I was really ready and focused. I had just done an art piece for every single day for a year. I was really focused, and I tried to heal my body, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to. I didn't have any income. I had saved enough money to wait until disability had kicked in, and then it didn't, because the process is horrific, as I've spoken about. And everything just kind of went wild in a bad way. It was not enjoyable for me, and no one walked into my life to like lift me up and help me. It was just awful. In fact, it was the opposite. It was like so many people randomly came back into my life after not being in it for so long, and then they just disappeared in the hardest time again. So it was really unusual, and I still haven't figured out what that was about. But a lot of people put on a show for a little bit, and then they just disappeared from my life again. So I did my best to stay focused. I was really excited to go to school. I thought for sure that that would help me. And then my funding, it changed the criteria for being able to receive the funding changed the week before I was supposed to start my first class, which was Native American Studies. And I was really excited for that because I'm an Indigenous mixed race woman. But instead, I read hashtag not your princess, and I had a super visceral response to that book. And I wrote to the man and I was like, you should teach that book and only that book in your class, because for women that are Native American and mixed race, it is so beneficial to read. I highly recommend it. It's really intense if you've lived through what I have. It does seem to be not a coincidence. So I could have done different things with my time had people not sabotaged my life in different ways. If I had been in a supportive area instead of a place that believed rumors and lies about me, it would have been much better for me mentally, psychologically, and physically. If I had been away from the man who crippled me instead of 5 minutes away from him, again with people believing rumors and lies, it would have been better for me. But what I did is I obviously stayed single, and no man swooped in to pick me up and tell me it was going to be okay and he's got this. I'm not that girl. You hear stories about that all the time. And I actually at one point thought to myself, you know, maybe that could be what this is about, because I'm so prideful and independent, and I've never wanted someone in my life unless like I had it. Like I had my life, I had my money, I had my independence, I had like I could take care of myself fully. And I thought this might be what this lesson is. It's like for me to make myself let someone help me instead of actually always be the one that helps others and is like the giver and is always there and available. Like maybe this time it was supposed to be that someone came into my life, but it wasn't. It wasn't about that. I'm not that girl. There are women like that in the world that never have to worry. They never have to wonder. But a lot of times they play games in order to get what they want. So I'm grateful that I don't do that. Another reason why I probably don't date. I don't know how to be anything other than what I am. I don't know how to play games. And I think what happens is like I'm actually pretty real and I'm low maintenance and I don't require a lot to make me happy. And that throws people off because their perception seems to be so different. So I don't think that men know what to do when they get into a relationship and I'm like disciplined and consistent, can take care of myself, easy to make happy. I have my own flaws too. I have a big list of them. You know, I'm honest. I want to communicate. I want a better relationship. And in today's world, people they like the games. They like women that will cheat on them. They like women that will play games with them. They like women that will make them feel threatened and like they have competition. Men like that. And that's how women get men and keep men. And I'm just not going to do that ever. I'd rather be alone for forever than pretend to be something other than who I am. So that also contributes to not dating, I think, as being real. When I worked before, I loved the bar that I worked at because everybody knew that I just didn't date. So all of the locals, if they were around, and anybody was like on the back deck and they might mention me or asking me out, people would be like, she doesn't date. Don't even try. And that I loved because it's like the best the best line of defense when you're a single woman is to have a community that will say things like that and help you. So I loved them for that. I love that there was this group of people. They came out every weekend. They were usually there when I worked because it was a karaoke bar. So I like sang and worked, and they would come in and sing karaoke and hang out. And anytime, one woman in particular, I love her, and anytime a man would say anything, she'd be like, don't even. And so it was good for me because everyone kind of had my back and made sure that nobody was going to try to mess with me, you know. And I would tell people, like, I've got a dog, like, I don't date and I'm not dating. It was like I'm taking a break. And I was really happy doing that. So now it's like a combination of needing to go through processing all of the trauma I've lived through in my life because I have a disability, not being able to work because I have a disability, and having the reason be the last man I had a relationship with. So it happened in my home, the reason that I have a crippling disability. Um, and having all of the people around me just believe the liars, that was really hard for me too, to wrap my head around. And also to be disabled and how to talk about that. You know, like it's not like being an able-bodied woman and going out, like you have to talk about things that are not going to be pleasant or normal. And most people in today's world lack the substance to be able to handle those kinds of conversations or to be in a relationship like that. It requires a whole person. It requires somebody who doesn't just care about outer appearance. It requires somebody who actually is supposed to be with me, not just like a random person who's looking for whatever my ex was looking for, because he never loved me, and that could not be more clear by going over what happened to me in those 4 years in the relationship. So the hardest part is always making peace with the fact that you loved someone that never loved you. They just were using you. And that's really challenging to do because you want to know why you could let yourself love someone like that. How can you love someone who's abusing you? How can you love someone who is using you? How can you love someone who treated you so badly? And I don't always know what the answer to that is. I just know that I did, care about people that have been horrific to me in my life. So that's kind of a whole other thing to try to deal with. But now it's been 3 years and 3 months. I mean, the last person to touch my physical body was my ex-abuser, and it wasn't pleasant. So it's been longer than 3 years and 3 months, but it's been 3 years and 3 months since I've been away from him and alone completely. No dating, no intimacy, no kissing. And it's not like, as an autistic person or an INFJ or whatever combination that is, that you don't think about it or you don't want it or you don't desire it. It's just different. It's like if you are waiting for someone to be like your heavenly ordained spouse, it's different. I don't want to risk another person who just wants a 6-week fling, when I'm looking for something real. I don't want to risk like a random thing because it's not worth it for me. And also, they will lack the substance or the substance that's needed for me to have a relationship with someone now that I'm crippled. Like, there is a chance that having an intimate relationship could contribute to healing, as my chiropractor mentioned in 2022. But there also is a chance that it won't, and that this will be my life, and that later in my life, this will also affect me. This could affect me if I ever decide to have children. I've never had kids, but if I decide to have children, I've taken care of lots of other people's kids, but I've never had my own. If I decided to have children with my future heavenly ordained spouse, then, that could be complicated now. All of these things contribute to what I'm experiencing now and staying single, but it's also like, I don't know how you're supposed to tell in today's world what someone is or is not. I don't know how you're supposed to tell if people are good. I don't know how you're supposed to tell if people are genuine. And I don't know how to trust people now because I've been through enough situations that I can see that most people are not trustworthy. Most of them are not genuine, and most people don't know themselves because they're too busy being distracted by many other things in life, and they avoid self-understanding and knowing thyself because they don't want to get to know themselves. And so I think it's really important to know things like how long someone's been alone, because I don't think that it just has to be after every relationship. Like I had a 4-year relationship. I've been single for 3 years and 3 months, which means I don't entertain men. I'm not in communication with them. I'm not flirtatious. I don't go on dates. I don't have intimate physical connection to anyone. I, again, steer clear of astrally connecting unless you can communicate with someone on the physical plane and know that it's mutual and that you both have that connection, because otherwise that's too dangerous emotionally, especially if you're alone and have been through what I have. It's just better to not think about that at all. But I think that in today's world, it's really important for our youth to know that there's so much more available to them than just fast dating or always having someone in your life, or thinking that you need to have a relationship to be whole, or thinking that you need to find anyone other than someone who's really good for you. Because I wish as a young person I had had a better society and societal model to have for love, so that I wouldn't have ended up in so many bad relationships. Because we can't have a society that wants to know why women stay in abusive relationships while they let society be abusive to us. I've talked about this before, where it's like, as a waitress who nobody knew, they must have just thought I appeared out of nowhere. So nobody knew me, so I got treated a lot different than others did. Other girls could say and do the things that I did. If they had a rude day, they wouldn't get fired. Our boss would laugh with them about it. If they had a human moment, they would get excused for it, or people treated them more respectfully because they knew their family member, or, they came from a family that had wealth or just was known. So the interactions were slightly different for me. And, being a part of a society that always treated me like I was still a servant and not a server, contributed to feeling like I'm not worthy of being respected. Standing up to people who otherwise have had control of me my whole life was one of the most freeing experiences of this. It's that I actually, when people were disrespectful to me, I didn't just bow and let it happen. I actually stood up for myself, and that was really liberating for me, and kind of the first time that I really have done that in my life, other than a few random moments in my past. It's more common for me to have tried to appease people and to be the peacekeeper and the peacemaker and to try to constantly make everything right. I got thrown in the middle of a really messed up, dangerous situation, and my natural reaction was to mediate it. I didn't belong there, although arguably I did, because I mediated it instead of doing what most people do. But I got put in a really hard situation, and I tried to mediate it as best I could while being in danger and keeping the most people safe other than myself. So the past 3 years and 3 months has taught me a lot more about myself than anything in my past. And I still don't know how to recognize someone's intentions, if they're good or authentic. I don't know what you're supposed to do in today's world to date or to find love. I like that in Muslim religion that you marry early and then you get to know your spouse, but there's a process that happens too, where it's not just you find someone random and you marry. But even today, I haven't been able to participate in one of the apps that's for marriage because it wants you to swipe. I don't want to swipe to date. I don't want to do a personal ad. I've never done that. I don't want to do a website thing. I've never done that. I wanted to believe in fate, but now I'm just beginning to see that there's too many inauthentic people on earth to know that it's fate. Too many people are good at faking. So that's not really a good gauge anymore either. So I'm not really sure if I ever will be able to date again, to be completely honest. I thought that love was magic for a long time, and my ability to get through the hardest time in my life, the past 3 years and 3 months, was to believe that love was magic. But then I was shown that it isn't. And that realization has sort of taken away what I had on earth to want to be. Now, this is a complicated thing. So if I was not crippled and I hadn't been dead as much as I have through this experience, I would know what to do with my life and I would be doing it. I still know what I want to be doing with my life, but having a crippled body doesn't allow me to do what I need to do. I can only do what my body allows me to do and what society restrictions have allowed me to do. And what just happened to me has allowed me to do. So it's pretty different, but I did somehow believe that love was going to be a factor in all of this, and it just wasn't. It wasn't a factor. Love of God, connection to God, love of self, but love from another person was not a factor in this. A lot of hate from other people was, and a lot of tearing me down, because, you know, when I was doing well, people didn't like to see it, but when I was doing bad, people loved it, and they kicked me when I was down big time. So it has not been an enjoyable experience for me, but speaking up about what I think would be healthier for young women and young men, especially in the society that I grew up in and experienced not love from, is to definitely take time being alone and to know yourself. There are so many things that you can do with your time that are beneficial that have nothing to do with dating and attention from others. It's like, you know, hiking every day was one of the best parts of my day in my life, no matter the weather. You know, hiking every single day, no matter the weather. Art, dance, singing, anything to do with music, movies, crafts, baking, cooking. You can get a microscope and get really into microbiology. You could get into fishing, farming, gardening, horticulture. You could learn to play a new instrument. Like I started to play the keys a little bit. The guitar I've had off and on for I've had a guitar since I was 15, and I started to play it when I was like 20-ish, and then I started to play it again in my mid-20s and then my late 20s, and I always get to a point where I'm playing pretty well, switching between chords, and then I sort of give it up because the way that I sing when I play the guitar isn't like that soul, deep voice that I like to use when I'm like singing in a rock band or whatever. If I had the clarinet, I would play that again. Sewing, you know, design. I made my first outfit when I was in first grade because my mom was a seamstress. So I made a little blue vest and skirt with white lace trim and roses on it that I wore to school. So getting back into sewing and designing, I made a lot of the things that I designed over the summer, quick templates anyway. But I couldn't really focus on that the way that I could have if I wasn't crippled, and the way that I could have if I had a different life situation. There's a lot of things that you can do with your time. And a lot of ways that you can make yourself feel whole and built up and at peace with who you are, and to enhance your connection to spirit or God or Allah or whatever it is that you choose to call that connection, and a path for you that is designed to be beneficial. Now, if a lot of people are getting in your way, it's very destabilizing, especially if they're making you unsafe, which is what was happening to me for a long time without me realizing it. But also a long time period where it was noticeable because I was physically unsafe. Then I was unsafe for a while, and then I was crippled, and I was very unsafe during what I just experienced. It was pretty terrifying on a lot of levels. No one will ever know exactly how strong and brave I am for what I just experienced, except for the people who put me through the hell. And they're not exactly honorable and forthcoming. So if you're a young person, there's a lot of things that you can do with your time. And if you are in danger, I think that it's best to just remove yourself. It seems impossible to go somewhere new and start over. And people everywhere will have bad intentions no matter what, because human beings are not fully human right now on this earth. But there are ways to feel more lifted up and benefited. I feel like if I had realized earlier that my community was never my community, I would have left a lot quicker. But I loved the land, the sea, the river, the mountain. I felt so connected to it because it was in me. It's in my blood and my bones, and my mother's ancestry is there and has been there for so long. I'm indigenous and mixed race, and my connection to that it's untouchable. So people don't miss me, but the land definitely does. And, people didn't want me there, but the land definitely respected and appreciated my presence. But I should have left a long time ago, because I should have realized earlier that it wasn't my community. And I regret that I didn't go somewhere sooner. But my connection to home made it so strong, but I still haven't been to where my dad was born. I'm in a place now where his ancestors came from. He's mixed race and indigenous, and there's a lot of connection here, but I still haven't been able to explore because I'm disabled and I don't have an income, and my life is a little bit chaotic still, but also peaceful. And at least I'm safe here where I am. There are so many more people here, but it's safer for me here than it was back home, because back home pretended to be safe while being incredibly dangerous for me my whole life, while here doesn't pretend to be anything than what it is, but it's safer for me. So if you're a young person, especially if you're not able-bodied, then obviously you can still do all of these things, but it's complicated for you. If you are able-bodied, if you're in an abusive relationship, please leave before you end up dead or crippled forever. If you are in a place where you're not appreciated and respected, if you constantly have to be the one who's peacekeeping or bowing down to everyone and you can't take up space without it bothering people, go somewhere where you will be respected and appreciated. Even if it takes a few tries, make sure that you do that so that you don't end up in a situation like I've been put in my life. And mostly know your worth and know that your connection to spirit is more important than anything, and that the more that you can do for yourself, the better that it will be for you. So doing a painting every day, I haven't sold any. I sold a painting when I was 15 years old, and it was $30, and I sold 2 different paintings over the past few years that were both inexpensive, $30. So I don't have like a booming painting business or anything like that. If I did, I wouldn't have been posting for help so much, and talking about everything so much, because with money, you have freedom to be able to keep yourself safer. Without it, that's when complications usually arise in people's lives, like homelessness and things that happened to me and happened to others in this situation. So painting is for me, though. It's something I do every day for myself to stay motivated. Self-study, since they dropped funding, and no one in my country honors the certifications that I have. So 580 hours in yoga and Ayurveda certification, along with the natural knowledge that I had in herbs, and also being a shaman, a born shaman, and being connected to spirit in the way that I am. Being an astrologer since I was 20, so almost 18 years now, and having lots of psychic gifts as well, but I don't offer that as a reading. People don't get psychic readings from me, but I'm very psychic, much more psychic than even I would like many times. It's not always easy to be as psychic as I am. It requires a lot of recalibration. Being as psychic as I am requires me to know that making different decisions can change outcomes, and that other people making different decisions can change outcomes, and that also it is a responsibility when it comes to worldly matters, trying to make sure that you can help, and trying to find people that will understand you and take you seriously in a world where so many people are divorced from spirit is very challenging. So astrally or telepathically, the most work I've seen happen for me in meditation. Because where I was living and where I've been most of my life, they don't consider me of value, what I have to offer. So when I'm trying to do things like prevent World War III, they don't really consider my opinion as valid or valuable. They just continue to move forward with their egos guiding because they don't remember how to be connected to spirit. When you're a young person or any age, it's not too late for you to harness your gifts. That's the other thing, cleaning. You've got spaces to clean. There's so many things you can do with your time. So before, all of the things that I mentioned, I did with my time while working multiple jobs, which was always necessary where I lived my whole entire life in order to survive, making $13,000 to $28,000 a year. $28,000 a year only for a few years of my life. Before that, I made between $13,000 and $20,000 on a regular basis most of my life. So not a lot of money compared to what the average United States of American person makes. I found out this year that the average person made around $77,000, and I was making 13 to 28 my whole entire life. And when I made 28,000 a year for a few years in a row, I was ecstatically happy. I was like, I'm gonna make my whole future work, and I would have, but I ended up crippled, and now everything is slow going for me. And again, there's a chance. A woman told me when I was going to the Y for water therapy, she told me that for 10 years she couldn't walk the way that I have what's going on. She probably had an incomplete spinal cord injury as well. And she said for 10 years she couldn't walk and she had trouble, and then after that she could again, and now she's like back to normal. And she doesn't have any type of noticeable issues from that time period. But I'm only 3 years, and I guess it's about 7 months into what happened to me. So, definitely having to kind of consider each moment, and it's tempting for me to honestly just not let anyone new into my life for a long period of time, or maybe ever again, because until I can feel beautiful, which doesn't happen still for me, unless I can hike, run, if I can take care of myself, meaning like financially, making an income that I know that I could make, waitressing and bartending, I knew what I was going to make year round, and I could budget and I could save money, and I had everything. I just wish I had stayed alone until I purchased my land. If you're a young person and you have goals, I would say that it's more important for you to reach those goals. And honestly, people always say to take a chance on love, but what I learned is the opposite. That taking a chance on love only got me harmed, and only got me heartbroken, and only got me used. Taking a chance on love is the reason I didn't accomplish my goals and my dreams. It's the reason that my life is chaotic and the way that it is, because most people are not genuine in today's world. That's what I learned in almost 38 years. I learned that women like me are not the women that men swoop in to help build up in their time of need. And I learned that women like me are not the people that communities and societies want to help when you're in need. So it was definitely really eye-opening, coming from a place that pretended to be so inclusive and caring and genuine, and have rallied for people in huge ways. when they are in times of need or when they just ask for help, you know? I don't like asking for help. It's why most of my life I didn't, and why most people had no clue what my life was like, because any hardship I went through, no one knew about. I showed up for my shifts at work. I did my job with a smile on my face. I was efficient. I did everything to the best of my ability, and I just moved forward. So asking for help is the most challenging thing that I've ever done. Publicly asking for help, posting about it regularly, and then having no one care was really eye-opening for me. Again, astrally, I saw major changes in the world, which was very encouraging for me, because I was like, well, it's not helping me personally, but the change that I'm saying in meditation, that I'm communicating in meditation, is happening all over the world. People are picking up on what I'm saying. So that was encouraging for me, because it means that people will change for the future, and start to pay attention, which is a big part of why I was speaking out for young people, so that they know, that what I went through is not something anyone should ever have to go through. Especially all of the people that put me through those things have gone unpunished and unharmed. Well, I wouldn't say unharmed, and I guess I wouldn't say unpunished either. God is very protective of me, which also made people hate me quite a lot. By human justice standards, people were unpunished, but by God's standards, they definitely had to see justice, and will continue to, I have no doubt, until God thinks that they have paid for what they've done to me. Not financially, but in lieu of karma. God is very, very protective of me. So, 3 years and 3 months, it's not that I don't desire kindness or desire touch or connection. I just don't want it with anyone other than my Allah or God-ordained spouse. And I don't know how to recognize that, because I think people are so good at faking who they are that it's really challenging to tell what someone's intentions are. And that, of course, in an ideal world for me, would be someone that drops out of the sky and lights shining by them and the angels sing from above and it makes perfect sense and you're like, oh, there they are, and then you can get married and do life and have a good connection. But this is Hell Planet. So I have to be practical about Hell Planet, which looks like probably me staying single for another 3 years, another 5 years, another 10 years, maybe forever. And just knowing that when I die, I will finally get to see again. This is the issue with when you've died and then had to be brought back here too many times. I'm part of many near-death experience groups, and I haven't met anyone who feels the way that I do yet. Evidently, they still desire living here on this earth. They still feel so connected to the earth and what they have here, or what they could accomplish here. I have been dead a lot through this experience, and that is the only time in my life I felt loved. And arguably the only time I've been loved. The only time I've felt that connection, because no one has really loved me in my life. That's something else I learned in this time period too. And it's not meant to be sad. God loves me to the point where people hate me because of what happens to them when they harm me. So God loves me a lot. So that's something that I don't have to, I got called a bad witch because God made people pay for what they did to me, not financially. I'm a poor woman, but to the point where people started to think I was a bad witch because God put them through things for what they did to me, or what they were planning to do to me, or what they caused for me. So when I died, I actually felt that oneness and connection and love that was so fierce and beautiful that I haven't wanted to be on this earth since, especially because it doesn't really exist in the form of human beings very frequently. and for me to find my Allah ordained spouse, or for them to find me, because I'm done searching. I've never really been much of a searcher for love anyway, which is why I've been fooled so many times, because I never sought it out. I never went out looking for love. It always just presented itself, but each time it was someone with negative intention and motives. It was never somebody who was genuinely showing up in my life because they actually cared about me. It was people who had an intention that was dishonorable. So I don't really know, what that is going to look like, but I know that I have plenty of things that I can do with my time, and that when I actually have an income or my finances are a little bit different, I will actually be able to pursue life in a different way, which will also be fulfilling and beneficial. And that someday, if I ever do end up experiencing actual love on this earth, with at least, I've always wanted at least one person to love me someday. I always wondered what that would have been like. If one person at one point in my life had loved me, what could I have accomplished? I probably would have been a professional. I probably could have made money singing, dancing, with my art. I probably could have made money doing a lot of different things and been very successful, but I didn't have anyone to love me, and I didn't have anyone to believe in me, and I didn't have anyone to build me up, which is probably why I always did that for other people, because I wanted others to know what it's like to have people believe in them, because I only ever had God believing in me. And while that's beneficial, especially for every other existence, because this is hell, it doesn't change how sad it can be, or how destabilizing or damaging it can be on this earth. But my connection to spirit is so great that most people can't comprehend what I'm talking about on this earth. So I know that I've outgrown this planet. And honestly, I keep wishing to be in heaven, because if I can't bring heaven here, I don't belong here anymore. I don't belong on an earth that wants to keep itself in hell. It doesn't fit. It's not right. And it's not the way that this earth is meant to be. Earth is not meant to be this way. It's not meant to be hell for people. It's not meant to have any human trafficking. It's not meant to have any starvation. It's not meant to have anyone lacking anything. That's all things that people tell you because they want way more than what they should have, while other people have nothing. So it's definitely enlightening to realize that, and my connection to God has helped me with that, and the lack of anyone in my life loving me has also taught me that and helped me see that this is hell. So if somebody had loved me young, then maybe I still wouldn't realize that about here. Maybe I would still think that there was a potential for paradise on earth. And maybe that's the reason that it had to happen this way. Because I haven't had anyone, I realize that this is hell, and that until people want to change it and make it the way it's supposed to be, it can't be anything different. Because it's people that forgot how to be human beings that force this earth into the chaos that it's in. Not anything else. So at least I do know that no matter how many years I live on this earth, lonely and alone, when I die, I get the ultimate seat in heaven. And everyone who remembers how to be human also gets to leave this earth. And nobody is tethered here because of the wrongdoings of their family or their religion, misunderstanding, interpretation. No one is tethered here except for people who knew better in this time period and prevented us from evolving by pretending to be something that they weren't because they wanted more than what was meant for them. So I at least have that. And if I ever do find love someday, I'll maybe make a video on how to tell if someone's right for you. But again, I think the only way that I'll know that is when I'm dying. I'll be like, wow, that person really was as trustworthy as they said. And even then, how do you know? Because everyone is so good at faking. I'm a level of loyal that I don't think there's another person walking on this earth that is, to be honest. I might be the most loyal person on the earth. I'm just different. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I've had no one in my life to build me up. I've had no one in my life to be there when I need them. I've had no one in my life to be a rock when I'm like falling down. And it's been God and I the whole time, even if I called it something different. The universe is what I always said before, because the word God and I didn't go together, because people that said things like God didn't like me ever. And now I say God. I can say Allah too, but that also has caused quite a commotion for different reasons.